Stop whatever you're doing and watch this entire training video before you go to rehab. Because Terry and I are going to talk about some of the things that we learned in rehab, some of the things we did in rehab, some of the things that worked, and some of the things that didn't work. And we're going to talk about the difference between the people who get sober and stay sober and the people who just can't make it and end up in a revolving door of rehabs, sometimes as many as 13 times in a row. What is it that's stopping you from finally understanding and taking to heart what you need to do to quit drinking or drugging once and for all? That's what we're going to talk about today, and this is all about what you should be doing. Now, as a disclaimer before we start, if you are detoxing and you're worried about your alcohol or drug consumption, always go to the doctor first. Without fail, go to the doctor, even if you think nothing's wrong. If you've been drinking or consuming a large amount of materials, as it were, you need to get to the doctor because detox can be deadly. Terry had a really, really difficult time detoxing. I had a hard time with my alcohol detox, and by the grace of whatever there is out there, we're still alive today, but only by a thread. So get to the doctor, start understanding what's going on, get on a plan for getting the alcohol and drugs out of your system. Now, if you're contemplating going to rehab, maybe you think you have a problem, maybe you don't think you have a problem, and everyone else is telling you you need rehab. Or perhaps people are pulling the old intervention on you. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how this works. We're going to talk about what's going on in your mind, and we're going to talk to you about how drug addiction and alcohol addiction is not a moral failure, but it's a failure of our evolutionary process. It's something that happens to our body that we can't control without outside help in many instances. Now, there are people who have spontaneous sobriety and stuff like that. Good for them. I wasn't fortunate enough to have a spontaneous sobriety. I had to go through the ringer, go through all kinds of things, almost lost my life, ended up in a mental institute, and ended up in rehab. Why? Because alcohol made me crazy. That's what it does. It's a scientific fact. That's why you can't drive under the influence. If you can't drive under the influence after having a night out, you can't even drive in a straight line or walk in a straight line. How do you expect your life to function if you continually put alcohol in your body and let it affect your mind? See, what happens there, we all know, we've all been there. We get the crazy ideas to call the ex when we're drunk. That's a great idea. Or we get the crazy ideas to talk to family when we're drunk or do crazy things when we're under the influence. Imagine what happens if you continually are under the influence, like Terry and I were. I don't think for years there was much time where I was actually sober, where the alcohol actually left my body and I was actually able to get back to the norm. So that's what we're going to talk about today, kind of a heavy topic. If you're contemplating rehab, looking at getting sober, check out talksober.com. We got great resources for you. If you're struggling with addiction, talksober.com is a place to go. We're loading it all the time with all kinds of PDFs and tools and all kinds of things to help you get and stay sober. So Terry, what are your thoughts on rehab? What was it like that finally got you to go? Like, I know for me, it was like pulling teeth. I didn't want to go to rehab. I thought I could do it on my own. I thought I had it handled, but I really didn't.
Yeah, totally. I felt exactly the same way. It was like pulling teeth. I didn't want any help. The entire time I was drinking, especially when I was drinking heavily, it was all about me drinking as much as I could and not letting anybody know. And going to rehab meant doing just the opposite thing, letting everyone know that I had an alcohol problem. And on top of that, that meant that I would not be able to drink again because everybody that I knew would call me out on it if they saw me drink. So it was a tough one to finally make that decision. Maybe I shouldn't say make that decision, but just finally surrender and do it. And it was tough, I mean, maybe some of you are wondering if you should go to rehab, and maybe you're wondering even like if rehab works, because a lot of people, they don't stay sober after rehab. But I didn't stay sober right after rehab, but I eventually did get sober, and rehab was a huge part of my sobriety and getting sober, and it really taught me a lot about alcoholism, taught me on what to do. It gave me that feeling of being sober for a month and how great it felt, and pointed out the opportunities that I had in my life for, being sober and things like that. And, to answer Marcus's question, I was just desperate. I mean, I'd tried everything, everything that I could do. All those little things that we all try is, limiting the amount that we drink, and trying to switch from hard alcohol to something not so hard, or just there's so many different things that people try to do to limit their drinking or moderate, and it just didn't work. I mean, there I was drunk, desperate. I was like physically, I was mentally sick. I mean, I'd lost my job, I'd lost my marriage. I'd driven all my friends out of my life because I was drunk all the time and I didn't want them to know. I mean, I hated the person that I'd become, and I hated what what I'd done, and bad things were happening to me. And that's the way I looked at it, is bad things were happening to me, even though I was causing them. But I still had this attitude of, I don't need anyone. And I had this insane attitude of, okay, fine, I'm just going to, I got friends that wait tables that make like $300 a day, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get that job and do that, and then life will be easy, and I'll just do that. And, I would think that at nighttime when I was drinking, of course, and the next morning I'd be like, nah, I ain't doing that crap. Nah, I think I'll have another drink. And it would just be this merry-go-round of doing the same thing every day. And I just drank myself into oblivion. And that happened for countless and countless days. And, the negative effects just kept happening, and they got worse and worse. Lost the marriage, as I said. I actually walked away from the job so that I wouldn't be called out on it. And, things were just getting worse. My life was just becoming tiny, just living in my little bubble in my house, going out to the store when I absolutely had to. And that's it. That was it. I wasn't even walking my dog very much, stuff like that. And it just got worse and worse. But fortunately, I had a friend that was kind of visiting me a lot and stuff like that. And I finally I don't know why, I don't know what made me do it, but finally I just said, I'm an alcoholic and I have to quit. And I don't know how. And her and my brother, and they helped me find a rehab to go to. And that took some work on their part. I wasn't physically able to. But they found one for me to go to, and there I went. I packed a little bag of stuff that I thought I needed, which was none of the stuff I actually needed, but got there and started rehab. And that was how I got there. A lot of people, they go there because their family makes them go, the courts make them go, something else. So maybe there's other reasons, but it really doesn't matter how you get there. What I think the most important thing is, which we're going to talk about today, is the mindset that you need when you get there. It's a really difficult thing to do for us. It was for me, because I was so clouded, and I so didn't want to change everything in my thought process. I thought I had the answers, and it's something you have to do. You have to learn to change, and you have to be open to what they're telling you. And
Absolutely.
You have to just take it in, whether you agree with it or not. It doesn't matter. You I look at myself in the mirror at that point, and it's like, what have I done for myself? I'm the one that got me here. So whatever I'm doing is the wrong answer. I gotta listen to what other people are doing that know, and that was a key for me in finally making it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because a lot of times they talk about rock bottom. You got to hit rock bottom before you get sober. And I think what the idea of rock bottom is, which, it's different for other people. Like one guy could be losing a job. For me, it was like losing everything. And we have to look at that and say, why is that an important factor? Well, it's shown. There's actually a book, I forget what is it, William James, I think it was, wrote a book called The Varieties of Religious Experience. And he talks in that book about how when people are down and out and they're in an overwhelmed state, whether it's fatigue, not eating, standing for a long period of time, overloaded in the mind with certain things, like a lot of people are right now here in the States and around the world with the virus and all these things that overloads our mind. And what happens is it puts us off kilter and in a vulnerable state. And in that vulnerable state, there's the ability to be vulnerable and go deeper down into the hole, or there's the natural ability of the mind and the body to listen to whatever it is. So if I tell you something right now and you're like, dude, Marcus, I've been sober for 3 days, bro. You don't know. I got this. Okay, that's a different thing than if I get you when you're hungover. When you're hungover, you're much more susceptible to ideas, although it's very short-lived and your body's craving more of the drug or the alcohol, and so it's hard to get past it. Now, with rehab, you have a very unique possibility where these two things can meet. Now, if you get the right trainer, the right type of place, like Terry and I luckily ended up at. Now, for me, I was terrified. I thought rehab was like prison light. Right, I thought I was like literally going to a prison type thing where you can't get away, and there's a bunch of drug addicts there, and those are true. I mean, you can leave rehab whenever the hell you want. You're the person signing the bill, so I mean, you can do what you want. But you are in there with some interesting people. I remember the first couple days of rehab. One of the guys who was a drug guy who had no interest in getting sober. He was just thrown there by the courts or whatever. Kicked a bucket, the bucket that they used for washing the kitchen, kicked it, and it flew by my head, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm going to die here. A little over dramatic on my part, but, it was kind of scary, and I was scared of that, but I was in that vulnerable state, and I went into rehab looking at it as like it was school. Like, this is a class, I'm paying for it, insurance is paying for it, whatever it is, you're there, right? Get the most out of it, because you're there anyway. Like, you're there for 30 days, and, you can pick up chicks or find the dudes or whatever, and a lot of that happened. And so you look at me, and I went there, and I had my notebook. I probably looked like the little dork teacher's pet, but I didn't care. It was or death. It was like, this either works, or I'm going to go out and drink myself to death. And at that time, that wasn't as scary as I thought, because I was like, hey, I kind of welcomed it. I was like, I'm good. I could check out. But now I realized that was flawed thinking by alcohol. And so I went there, and I was like, I'm going to get as much as I can out of this. I'm going to learn to stay sober. I'm going to listen to the stuff. And I treated it like I was in some university for, staying sober or drug addiction. And I really, really took to heart what needed to happen. Now, contrast that with other people, right? They say the success rate of rehab is 5%. Which, that's pretty sad. And I think part of that reason is probably there's people there that don't want to be there, and there's people there that just aren't ready to be there, or there's people there that aren't taking it to heart, or it's just another social environment, right? The alcoholic and the addict is a very adaptive type person. We adapt to anything. We're like, hey, take our house away, cool, as long as I got my beer. Someone comes by and, yells at me every day, that's cool, I got my drink. And we adapt to everything. And going to rehab could be another thing you're just adapting to. And what they use in rehab oftentimes is called the social model of treatment, where you're socialized around people that are trying to get sober. And, the theory behind that is that will work. However, part of the problem is you get caught up in things. Like, I remember people were like, man, I'm going to know you the rest of my life. We're going to be buddies forever. We're going to be sober. Hallelujah. And funny enough, the one person that I didn't act that way with is Terry, who now I do consider like he's going to be a lifetime friend for me. But I never would have thought that in rehab. I never would have thought that. But funny thing is though both of us were on our different paths, we ended up going the same place where we have the same outlook and we're able to stay sober. And a lot of other people aren't able to do that. So what you got to do is when you go to rehab, you got to remember it's for you. Chances of you hanging out with these people are probably slim to none. And it's probably not a good idea. Like, out of rehab, it's probably not a good idea to just go hang out with all the people in rehab. Not a good idea. Maybe later, go hang out with someone who's got 2, 3, 5 years of sobriety. Go hang out with someone who's been through stuff. right? I remember my brother went to the same rehab Terry and I did. I took him there, and he didn't get it. Like, he was supposed to be discharged from rehab. We couldn't find him for a day. He was out in San Francisco somewhere doing God knows what. Missed a couple plane flights. We didn't know where he's flying from, and he shows up somewhere, who the hell knows where. And it took him years to finally get sober. Now, I know he does drink today. I don't know if he's alcoholically drunk. I have no idea. But for some reason, it didn't stick for many years. He struggled for many years. And I think that is attributed to timing and not really looking at it for what it's there for. We would go visit him in the rehab and, oh man, this chick over here, she's hot, but this guy over here and this stuff over here, and this guy's a dick. And it's like, why are you here? Right? And it's easy to get caught up in that stuff. It's human nature. That's what we do. It's hard to say, I'm here to get sober for me. This is all about me. It's one time that you're allowed to be a little selfish, although alcoholics are selfish most of their life. But this is the one time you're allowed to be so selfish, sober, and of a clear mind.
Yeah.
And also, if you guys are listening, we actually have a report that we wrote over at talksober.com. If you're contemplating rehab, you can go over to talksober.com. You can click the big yellow button to join our online recovery class, or you could click on Should I Go to Rehab? And it'll give you some tips and information on what our rehab experience was like, different things like that, what you expect to get out of it. So if you're looking to get and stay sober, talksober.com has a lot of good resources for you.
Yep. So let me just tell you a little bit about my experience with rehab. And as Marcus said, his experience was a bit different than mine. And they were, I mean, we went through the same stuff, but I think our anxiety levels and our thought processes when we came in there were quite a bit different. But when I got there, I was still, I was blowing, they breathalyze you. I blew a .15, so I was still very, very legally drunk. And they put you in a detox room, and it's not like it's padded cell or anything like that, but it's right near the nurse's office, and they watch you and they just keep an eye on you and make sure your withdrawals aren't terrible, and they give you meds to help you with your withdrawal symptoms so that you don't seize and things like that, because that's a real possibility for people when they're going through withdrawal. But I was there for a couple days, whatever, and then they put me in a regular room. And they're there, the counselors are there 24 hours a day. The nurses there, I don't know, whatever, 10 hours a day, something like that. And they get you on a program. And if you need meds, they get you on those, and they give them to you as you need them and whatever. And but everybody eats together. We all get in line and go eat. The food was fine. Was it great? No. Was it terrible? No. It was all fine. There's people there that are giving you ideas like, you're going through withdrawal right now. You should probably drink a lot of juice because you just took all this sugar out of your system, and maybe it's a good idea to drink more. Now that's something that you have to talk to your doctor about. If you got diabetes or something like that, maybe that's not such a great idea, but whatever. They give you good food, and I was happy with that. And they do a lot of not online. What am I saying? There was no online then. But they do a lot of classes, in-person classes, and they teach you about the disease and how it works on our mind and how it changes us. And they also teach us about recovery and what we need to do in recovery. And a couple things that I got out of that, were very simple, which is the only thing you have to change is everything. And that's everything everything in my thought process, trying to be positive and open-minded and willing and honest and things like that. All these things that I didn't do before, but that was one of the main things I got out of that. And the other thing is that just do everything you possibly can to stay sober. This is what you need to focus on. It's easy not to drink here because you're in rehab. We don't have any alcohol here. But when you get out there is when the work really starts. Mm-hmm. And right now we're teaching you and getting you sober and giving you, a base to work off of. And that was really important for me to understand that. And So that's what a lot of that was like. But I had some of the same fears that Marcus did. I was afraid of what are these people going to be like in here, and is there going to be a bunch of hardcore dudes that fight all the time and stuff like that? And my experience was that that was not the case. Yes, there were some people that were having emotional issues and anger and things like that, because that's what going through withdrawal that happens with a lot of people. But it was fairly tame for me. Ended up being bored quite a bit of the time. A lot of the rehabs, they let you watch TV and sports and all that. Not ours. They put on an approved movie occasionally, like once a week, and other than that, we got to play cards and board games. And after they allowed me to, I could go on little walks around the property. But they had a swimming pool that they let people swim in, at a particular time, so they could watch people. And they had basketball and horseshoes and things like that. It was pretty mellow. It was definitely not a resort type place. This is an old hunting lodge, is what it was. And it was hot. It was hot upstairs and cool downstairs, and it was all right. For me, the experience was okay. And I found a couple of guys that I just kind of hung out with, and Marcus wasn't one of them. But I just kind of hung out with them, and for me, it really wasn't that bad. But at the same time, I didn't take the rehab like it was a study course, like I was going to school and things like that. And that might have been the reason why I drank for about a month afterwards. But I did get sober after that. And so that was just kind of my experience. And I'll talk about it in a little bit. I could talk about why I started drinking and what got me sober finally. But rehab was definitely a huge part of it, and I would not trade that for anything as far as my journey to sobriety.
It's funny too, because we look at like where we come from and what life is like and what we're expecting. You talk about the food, and the food was decent. I can't say that for every rehab, but I can say after living in Florida for a while and being pampered, living in San Francisco with good food, which is where Terry is, and he happens to be like a pretty damn good chef. And you get pampered, because I found out here in Florida, like, the food is right on par with how the rehab food was. Like, you go out to eat, and it's like, eh. Yeah, here in Florida, you have to spend like $3.50 for dinner if you want something good, and otherwise it's like you go down the street and there's nothing good. And they don't know. They're like, hey, this is great. This is 5-star stuff. But living there, you get it. Another thing is don't expect a 5-star resort, which is interesting for me, because when I would do my business conferences, I would stay in like top floor penthouse hotel kind of places, and I got accustomed to thinking that's what I deserve. That's what I deserve. And when I went to rehab, I still had this pride of, that's what I deserve. And here I am in like a twin bed with some other guy who I hope he showers once a week. I don't know, And I think that's why it worked, because I had to let go of every little perfect, minute detail. For me, I'm really picky about my cooking. I love to cook, and I like it a certain way, and that's the way it's got to be. And so when I was in rehab, it's like, oh, no, this is the way we make it here, And luckily, the guy who cooked there was like, hey, I'll take some tips from you guys. And I think they even let me cook one night, if I remember right. It's interesting because sometimes you have to lose control of everything to realize what control is about, to realize that you really don't have control. I just heard yesterday, 71-year-old guy, super healthy, swam in like San Francisco Bay, which if you've ever been to the beach in the Bay Area, it's not what you see on TV. It's not warm water. It's cold water. And this dude swam miles and stuff. And he just fell over from a heart attack. You can control your life as much as you think, but you never know what's going to happen. You never know. Never in a million years would you know. And you have to release control. And in rehab, it was difficult because I'm a germaphobe, and going in a shower, which, other people shower in, not together, separately, At least that's how it was upstairs. I don't know how things were ran downstairs there, Terry, but you know, it was terrifying.
I'm not going there.
And luckily for me, I don't know what it was. Maybe because I don't know if you guys can tell on this show, but I am a whopping 5 foot tall on a good day, 5'1" on a really good day, and you know, most adult men and women are taller than me by quite a bit. You know, like you got people who are 5'6", they're like, I'm short. I'm like, dude, you tower over me. And so it was intimidating going to rehab. And it was scary. And you got to watch out for yourself. There are some rehabs that are not up to par. There are some rehabs that are shady. Do your research and focus on you. Right? Focus on you. What am I going to do to get sober today? What am I going to do? And, you know, evaluate. Can I quit drinking without help? And I tried. I tried for a year. I remember one of those fancy meetings I had in Vegas. I fell on my head. I drank too much, and I have a problem where I have trouble eating around other people, which that was another thing for rehab. I got to eat with 30 people I don't know now. And, you know, finally I got used to it, and I came around and started eating normal again. But at my Vegas meetings, I wouldn't eat, and I would drink. And I would drink like a fish, because in Vegas, your glass is never empty. You don't even have to pay for it. It just fills itself up as if by magical Vegas juice or whatever. And I got drunk and fell. And I remember at that point, I had a scar on my head. Not a scar, but like a mark. And I remember thinking, okay, I got a problem. They had to carry me up to my room. Luckily, they were nice about it and folded my clothes and took care of me and had Alka-Seltzer ready for me in the morning and everything. But I couldn't quit on my own. I tried for an entire year, off and on. 3 weeks here, 1 week here, 2 days here, complete bender here, complete almost ending my life here. And so I got to the point one time where I was like, okay, I'm going to rehab. And me and my wife were in therapy then, and the therapist was like, are you ready to go? And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm ready to go. Hallelujah, let's do it. And we called rehab after rehab, and chirp, 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 nothing. Finally, a couple days later, I drove to a rehab. They told me about the facility, and then I went home. And there was no follow-up. There was no nothing. So you need to be in charge of your sobriety, because all the rehabs in the world, all the counselors in the world, all the sponsors in the world don't care about you as much as you care about you. Yep. You have to make a decision and say, I'm going to get sober at whatever cost, even if it means I give up my 5-star resort and I go to a twin bed in some hunting lodge with a bunch of people. If that's what it means, that's what we need to do, because sobriety is more important than anything in life, as I'm sure many of you guys have found.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as I said before, you know, I went to rehab and I drank again when I got out. And then I got sober again about a month and a half later. And you know, I have looked back at the differences in what happened. And I just went to the rehab the one time. And then when I got out, like I said, I started drinking. And then after about a month of that, or 3 weeks, I don't know exactly. It's all kind of a blur. Surprised? But anyways, I quit on my own, and then I ended up going into the hospital. And I woke up, and I was sober when I woke up, and I've been sober since. What was the difference there? Now, I had almost lost my life the second time, but, you know, that time before, I was pretty darn close. Wasn't quite as close, so maybe that was a difference. But, you know, what I look back on mostly is the difference in my mindset. When I got out of rehab, when I was getting ready to get out of rehab, my whole thought process was, I want to get back to my house and get my life back to the way it was. And so that's what I did. You know, they gave us all these tools. They had us write out a detailed game plan on what we were going to do. And, you know, some of them were meetings and then possibly going to SLE, which is for those that don't know, sober living environment, which that would mean not going home for a few months, just living with other sober people. And They gave us many other tools to use, the hospital outpatient program, things like that. So I just did one of them. I went to meetings, and they told us when you go to the meetings, you got to get fully involved. You got to meet people. You can't just go and leave, you know. And all I did was I went and I left. I didn't take responsibility for my sobriety. I thought that 30 days was good. I'm cured. Even though they told us we're not cured. You know, this is the way this disease works. Even in early sobriety when we're sober, it's still trying to get back, still trying to get back in control of us. And, you know, the next time when I got sober and stayed sober, I was like, okay, nobody else is going to do this for me. I have to do it. I have to take the initiative. I have to get rid of that fear of talking to other people and listening to their advice and trying something new. You know, I just wanted to do my same old thing that I had been doing for years. And what was that same old thing going to lead me to? Drinking, because that's what I did for the last few years. And that was the biggest difference, is my mindset, the way I looked at it. I finally took responsibility for my sobriety, and it stuck. And so far, I'm still sober. And that's partly because I take responsibility for my sobriety. I do things every day for it. And that's a real important thing for me. And I think that's an important thing when you're going into rehab, is that you have to realize, like Marcus was talking about when he went, he was like, nobody's doing this for me. I need to do this. I'm not going to care what other people think or do. I'm going to do this because I have to survive. So.
Absolutely. And Chef Monty and some other people in the chat are talking about the affordability of rehab. Luckily, Terry and I were in a position where we were able to pay for it because our insurances were like, no, we don't cover anything. You just pay for the ability to pay more. That's how my health insurance is. Basically, get a card, and they're like, this card enables you to pay full price for everything. And I'm like, yes, that's a great $2,000 a month I spend on health insurance. And so, you know, when you're looking at affordability, there are rehabs that take insurance, and, you know, you got to call around. Over on TalkSober.com, we have some resources that you can use that'll help you find a rehab that's within your price range or within the insurance or whatever. You just got to call them and, you know, read the stuff and figure it out, and they'll help you with it. But, you know, you got to look at it and say, what is this worth to me? Because it can be a financial trouble. It can be an issue. And if that's the issue, you know, don't let it stop you. Like, don't be like, oh, I don't want to cover that, because I'm sure glad I paid for it. It was well worth it.
You know, and on top of the, you know, people, I feel you. I understand about the $30,000 a month and stuff like that this costs. It's unbelievable what it costs, and it's hard to come up with that money. Hopefully, you guys can get insurance to cover it. That's what most people end up doing. But you know, the one thing to look at least for me, is, you know, that last year and two of drinking, I was not employed. So I didn't make any money. I was burning through savings. So we can talk about how much the alcohol cost. I was a cheap vodka drinker, not the cheapest, like the second cheapest. So it cost me about $450 a month. Okay. And that's, you know, you're thinking that, oh, that's expensive, but that's not what rehab costs. Yeah, but I wasn't working. So what's it cost to live at my house in the Bay Area? I don't know, $3,000 a month. I don't know exactly, but okay. So there's quite a bit. 10 months, that's $30,000 rehab. Not to mention the medical. I was running out of medical insurance, so if that ended, then whatever the medical costs. When I went to the hospital, I was still insured, but that bill was $140,000. So this thing can stack up. Drinking is way more expensive in the long run.
Absolutely. And I do want to mention real quick, sorry to
that's
butt
okay.
in. 30,000 is one of the rehabs. The one Terry and I went to, I think, was like 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it was 12 when my brother went. I think it was 10 for us, something like that. If you paid
Right.
cash, it was 10, which most insurances will cover. I think you just got to check with yours. And again, talksober.com, you got resources there and everything like that. And it'll show you how to do that. but yeah, I mean, when I look at the lost productivity, the lost life, the shit I went through, I mean, I easily spent, because our insurance is high deductible, which means anything that's up to a certain amount, I got to pay out of pocket. And when I was drunk, I punched a wall, broke my finger, $7,000. And when you have high deductible, they just charge you whatever the hell they want. Now, I argued with them and said I'm not paying that much and got it down. But still, those two bills alone were more than the cost of rehab. In terms of alcohol, I was easily drinking $1,200 a month or more. Easily, because I thought I was a wine connoisseur, even though, I mean, they've tested the top wine connoisseurs and they can't tell the difference between $2 and $500. They just can't. As much as they think they can, they really can't. But I had the pride. I got to get this bottle of wine, $20. That's what I want. That was my fancy wine. And for the alcoholic, a bottle of wine does not last a week like for the rest of the people. It lasts like a day. And then I would buy the hard stuff. And I would go to the liquor store to buy the hard stuff, which is like, you might as well just give them $50 more. And then when I went on my hotel meetings, they would stock it with my favorite alcohol, which, by the way, at that hotel, it was $9 for one bottle of Bud Light. And I drank it like it was going out of style. I remember we had one bar tab. It's $5,000 for 2 nights. And, you think about the insanity of it, and you think about it and you say, I have to do something to get sober because this isn't working. This is not working anymore. My life is not working anymore. I need to do something, whether it's listening to these talks, whether it's going to talksober.com, joining our course, or checking out the resources. We got lots of free resources on rehab and how to choose one, stuff like that. Whatever it is, you need to put this first. Like, this is a matter of life and death for many people. Was for me, was for Terry, was for my brother. It is a matter of life and death every time you drink and get behind the wheel of a car. And unfortunately, we're not rational enough when we're drunk to make that decision. We get in our car sideways and say, oh, man, I'm friggin' fine. I've been driving for this much time. I can drive just fine. And we're not thinking straight. Right now, you might be sober. You say, hell no, I'm not going to get in a car drunk. That's the stupidest thing I could do. I could hurt myself, or worse, I could hurt other people. I'm driving a 10,000 pound or whatever they weigh, car, and I can hurt people. But you got to look at it and you got to say, what am I willing to do to get sober? And for me, the answer was anything. And the answer had to be everything, too. I'm willing to do everything. I'm willing to do what it takes. I'm willing to listen to people that I don't agree with. Right? I remember I walked into rehab and this dude with a ponytail, came in. Luckily, he had a suit on because I was like, okay, he's got a suit. We got to take him seriously because he's got a suit on. And I'm like, whatever, this guy's just spouting AA stuff. And I went in there saying, I'm not going to listen to AA. I don't want that stuff. I don't like that. That's a cult. And I was like, okay, maybe I do need to listen. And this guy who I looked at, and I'm like, okay, he's got a suit, so he must have an IQ of like at least 19. Comes in and he's like, I speak 5 different languages. I taught, psychology and philosophy in 4 different countries and met the people that you study from. And I'm like,
he's a good guitar player?
Good guitar player, wrote us songs. And the guy was probably, I would think his IQ is probably pretty high. And I had to humble myself to say, I'm going to listen to this guy, even though he's spouting stuff I don't agree with. And he told me, he looked at me in the face and he said, Marcus, learn to listen to the advice of people you don't agree with. Because my whole life was about telling people they're wrong, your advice isn't going to work, this is why it wouldn't work, which was ironic because I got mad at people for doing that to me. And he said, learn to listen to people even if you don't agree with them. Yeah. What's the harm in just listening? You don't have to get down on your knees and worship him. Just listen. He might have something to say. And you know what? Dude did have something to say. And what he said helped me get and stay sober. It helped me learn exactly what I needed to do. It helped me learn that I wasn't the be-all, end-all of human existence. It knocked me off my cloud and said, you know what, dude? You need to listen. And while I might not still do AA today, that helped me. It was a block in my sobriety that said, hey, right now you need this. And Ram Dass, one of my favorite people to listen to, he talks about things we cling to, right? And there's certain things we cling to in life. And, you might say, well, right now I need this, or right now I need that. And what happens is we look at that thing we're clinging to as the be-all, end-all, rather than the stepping stone it's supposed to be. It's like that old saying that says, a finger pointing at the moon. People go and they look and they examine the finger and they're like, whoa, look at this, this is a crazy finger. And they forget it's pointing at the moon. The moon is the glorious thing you're after. Sobriety is the glorious thing you're after. But we're sitting here fighting over what finger looks the best that's pointing at sobriety. No. Use what you need to use to get to the goal you need to get to. And then if it falls off later, it falls off later. Maybe, you say, hey, I don't really need this anymore. Maybe I'll go on to this. But make sure sobriety is first and foremost the most important thing in your life.
Yep. Remember, when we have that one finger pointing at all those different things to get sober that don't work, there's 3 fingers pointing back at us. That's where we have to take the responsibility.
Absolutely.
Cool. What was I going to say? Well, we could start taking some comments, I guess. Yeah. Somebody had asked earlier about smart recovery, if we've tried it. And I've seen it out there. I haven't tried it, but that's because what I'm doing right now works. If I was having some troubles right now, I might. As I've said before, I think a person should try everything they possibly can. There's a lot of people that I'm sure if I brought up AA and is it good or not, you guys would all have opinions. But it's really what tends to work for you. And I would personally, if I'm trying to get sober right now, I would be trying everything and try it with an open mind. Not trying to look at what isn't working, but try and look at what does work. And that's the most important thing. It's like when you guys are listening to us here and we're telling our stories, I talked about how low my bottom was. Maybe you found some similarities in my story to yours. And that's what you want to look at. Even if you didn't have that low bottom, maybe there's some similarities that you can relate to. Or same with Marcus. Maybe he's got some similarities into his story as to yours. And that's going to help you get on the road and start to see that, yeah, maybe you need to do something about this.
Absolutely. My inner 10-year-old started laughing when you talked about a low bottom. Something wrong with my head, But at any rate, guys, definitely look at that. There was... Mama Lisa says, this hour goes by way too fast. Well, Mona Lisa, if you do want to check out our other stuff, go over to talksober.com. Click on the big yellow button. You can sign up for our sobriety class. We are going to start doing Zoom meetings. We haven't started them yet. We're waiting for a few more people to get in there so we can get a good time. That'll give you some extra time each week. And there's also stuff that you can listen to on the go. New stuff, really detailed stuff about what it takes to get and stay sober. And if you're coming out of rehab and you're looking for a plan, this program is great. Like I would say if I was getting out of rehab and I had a resource like this, it would be the best $27 I ever spent. Not to mention the fact that that's about 3 Bud Lights in the hotel I used to get, right? So there you go. And that would be like 10 minutes of drinking time for me. But talksober.com, support the channel. And there's also some resources on rehab, insurance stuff, all kinds of stuff for you guys. We're building that up all the time for you. Benjamin says, I'd love your Zoom meetings. Yeah, get in there. We're trying to get more people to sign up right now. This business, we're trying to get it up and going so we can reach more people. But if you do go here and click on Join the Recovery Class, it will help us with that. It's only $27 a month. You can cancel whenever you want. There's all kinds of tools. We're going to start a weekly Zoom just for you guys, which will be good because you can actually talk on there. So if you want to, I think Mama Lisa said she's going to be sharing her story. You could share it there. Practice. Share your story. I mean, people will love it. And it'll be a great place for us all to hang out. You can talk. You can be on video if you want to be on video. Or if you want to be shy and just sit in a corner and no one will know you exist. When you go on the Zoom meeting, just put, big butt as your name or whatever, or small butt or whatever it is, or long bottom or something, whatever, and no one will know who you are, which is cool. So it's completely anonymous if you want it to be, with the exception of us. Me and Terry do see your info when you log in, just your name and email and stuff like that. Nothing personal, but really good. Again, talksober.com. You can click the big yellow button, then just fill out this form. It'll give you a username and email instantly. If you don't get it, let us know. It probably just went to your spam or something, and you'll be able to log in, get all those resources, talk to us, everything like that. Okay. Where is the Zoom meeting at in the Talk Sober? Once you sign up, we will put a link there this weekend for the Zoom meeting. Maybe that'll be our goal this weekend, is to pick a time for that. And then you can also order a private call if you just want to have a call with me and Terry. You can do that somewhere on here. Where is it? A private sobriety call with Marcus and Terry. So you can do that as well.
Yes. For all you that put in your how long you've been sober, and that's congratulations. That's awesome. Hey, even if it's your first day, that's incredible, because I couldn't get one day at all. I couldn't get half a day. So anything.
And contrast that too, because I could get 3 weeks, and that being able to get 3 weeks prolonged my getting sober by at least a year. Because I was like, I got this. I can go 3 weeks. What the hell are you talking about? I don't have a problem. But guess what? I did have a problem.
Yeah, that's, I see that a lot. And I think somebody earlier mentioned it. I'm not going to scroll back up, but they were talking about that they get really drunk occasionally. And that I've seen that, and I've worked with some people that, they're binge drinkers. And it took them a long time to finally realize that they had to get sober. Just those consequences kept getting worse and worse. And it's hard. It's hard to think that you're an alcoholic if you can, go a week or two without, or every weekend you tend to go out, and during the week you're fine. It's hard to realize. But when those negative consequences keep happening, it's something you might want to look at, definitely.
Yeah. David says, has you guys thought about doing this twice a week? As time permits. Right now I do run another business, which is extremely time consuming. So it is difficult. But this is like, I want Talk Sober to be kind of like my retirement plan. That's kind of why I'm doing it. And also to, help people and everything like that. So as time permits, as it grows, we might add some. And you can go support the channel and help us grow, because once it gets there, one of our goals is to have Terry do this full time. I don't know if I'll ever do it full time. I'll probably do it alongside my other business. But yeah, every time you guys go to talksober.com and sign up for just $27 a month for that, and also check the resources out and stuff like that, that does help us get closer to our goal of being able to do this. And I think once we do bring Terry full time, that'll be a game changer, because freeing up that time, and I think that's what you want to do, right, Terry? I think I asked you that. That would be
sure, I guess.
An time goal. But if he could do it as his main thing, I think that would really help with other stuff as well.
Hey, David says, my brain was hardwired to drink heavy once a week. And, David, my brain, I had wired my brain unintentionally and unknowingly to drink. And, I drank heavily once a week. Well, I also drank the other 6 days a week heavily as well. But that was just what alcohol does. It will hardwire your brain that way. But I was able to unwire that hardwiring. It's just like rewiring a house. It took work, and it took working in the right direction and consistent work. Not, it wasn't terrible work. It was good. And, I still have to keep up the maintenance on that. And I'm able to not drink now. And that's what, we can unwire that, definitely.
Absolutely. Catherine says, if you only drink once every few weeks, isn't that moderation? Well, it depends on what it's doing for your life. If you drink once a year, and that one time a year it screws up your life, that could be a problem. So it's all about what it does to your life. And we do have some new people here I do want to mention as well. We have Catherine, and then someone that was on earlier, I believe. Where'd she go? There's a couple of new people here. Doctor Who. Doug, I think you're new. Hey, we got a couple of Dougs in there. Mona Jones, Ron, good to see you guys here. Love you guys tuning in. It's great stuff. Uh-oh, Tony wants you to work 24 hours a day on this.
Yeah, I did. I've done that before.
I work 20
I was a
hours.
banquet chef at a huge hotel, and when you got a group in of 2,500 people and they want breakfast, lunch, and dinner 5 days in a row, you work pretty darn close to 24 hours. Not quite, but maybe 16 hours a day.
Yep.
Yeah,
And,
that was pretty tough work.
I think it's interesting, too, because drinking was a 24-hour a day job.
Yes, it was.
It's a lot of work.
And I did, yeah. And that's one thing is, being sober and sobriety is it's not nearly as much work as it is to stay drinking, especially after you lose your license and you lose your family and then you're drunk constantly, or you get those negative consequences and you have to go deal with courts or divorces or family issues or whatever. It's a lot of work.
Yep.
Well, Melissa, yeah, I rescued a dog about 6 weeks ago. It's a dog with some issues, some fear issues, but we're working on him. And he's a good dog. He's half Siberian Husky, half Border Collie. So, yeah.
And I think you guys have seen my crazy dog on a few of the shows. She's a nutcase. Man. I think she needs dog therapy.
Yeah, well, one thing we do is, just like, but it's for me too, is I walk the dog an hour a day. And that's huge. And, that's a big thing for me too, is the exercise, getting out there. And usually I walk in the wetlands. Sometimes we go up in the hills, depends on the time of year, as to whether ticks are an issue or not. But yeah, we get out there and enjoy nature and get to spend an hour with my wife out there and the dog and help him train and things like that. And it's working on sobriety is for me, a lot of it is doing things like that, enjoying life. Man, if I wasn't able to enjoy life right now, I don't know if I'd be sober today. If I had to fight alcoholism constantly, I don't know if I'd still be sober. It's building a life that you don't have to run away from, or that you don't want to get away from. Something, we want to. That's what I try to do, is just keep things going where, I don't have to be super happy, but I want to be happy most of the time. And that's what I try to do, is those things that I enjoy doing, and that helps a lot.
Benjamin says, I need a sober shack like yours. I think he's referring to my office I had built in the backyard. Funny thing about that is I've had these since I think the first outside office I had built, because it's cheaper than adding on to your house and it's far away. So, people don't come bug you as much. But if you do have, family does like to bug you when you're working at home, as I'm sure everyone's found out. But the funny thing about that is I had them back when I drank, and it was miserable when I used to drink. Like the same outside office that I have today, not the same exact one because we used to live in California, was a miserable place. I remember, I would drink and fall on the floor and cry, and sometimes I'd sleep out there because I'd pass out, and it sucked. So it's not so much the location, because you need to learn to be able to be calm and serene in the midst of craziness. And it's interesting because for me, I have trouble with crowds. When I met my wife, I hated crowds and I hated stuff, which is funny because I was a preacher and there was always crowds around. But theme parks specifically, theme parks I had a hard time with, and my wife loves theme parks. Right? I could take them or leave them, but she loves them. And she'd get them together, these big groups of people, and, there'd be 10,000 people watching a fireworks show, and we're all like elbow to elbow stuck in this crazy place, and I would get really, really anxious. And in sobriety, I can now do that. I'm not anxious at all. I don't care. I'm like, I'm good. So you learn to have your own space, not your own place, because it's very different. You can have your own place, that's security and walls and thoughts and stuff. But can you be serene in the midst of chaos? Can you be calm in the midst of chaos? That's the key. And the way to do that is by realizing you can't do a damn thing anyway. As anxious as I am in a crowd, if something happened, I'm hosed. Doesn't matter what I do. I'm going to get trampled. It's going to be chaos. Election stuff. No matter what I do, at the end of the day, what's it really going to change? What's it going to change? Unless I'm some quadrillionaire or a politician, I really can't change all that much. I got my one vote, just as important as your vote. So I go do it.
That's all we can do.
And we got to look at it like, you can't control shit. You can't. You think you can, but you can't. And a great book to read about that is Alan Watts' Wisdom in the Insecurity of Life, or something like that. And, trying to be calm. Mama Lisa says, I'm not struggling with my social anxiety like I was before because I was drinking and had to drink to socialize. Yeah, and it's difficult. Social anxiety is something I struggle with. It's something my family struggles with. My dad, when I was a kid, he didn't leave the house for 2 years. He was a realtor. People would come to our house. He'd give them the key and say, go show yourself the house. He couldn't leave the house. So anxious. And for me, I struggle with that. The key to anxiety is not giving into it and realizing you're going to be okay. Like, usually with anxiety, you have a worst case scenario in your head. Like, what's going to happen? Someone's going to yell at me. Or if you were abused as a kid, someone's going to hit me or whatever. Realizing that that's probably not going to happen, and realizing that the reason you're anxious is that already happened and you live through it. Like, it's okay. Like, what if I give a speech and everyone laughs at me, makes fun of me, and says, Marcus, you don't know what you're talking about. You're an idiot. So what? I'm on YouTube. That happens every couple hours, right? You read the comments every couple hours. There's someone who doesn't like me about something. And you realize, it doesn't really matter. What other people doesn't think of me doesn't really matter.
Yep.
And alcoholism makes anxiety 1,000 times worse.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for the accolades as we're winding things down. That's great. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. So before we close off, I do want to mention TalkSober.com again. We got lots of resources. If you're thinking about going to rehab, if you need help with stuff, go to TalkSober.com. There's some info there that you can use. If you want to join our sobriety recovery class and get in on the Zoom meetings, which are like this, but they're private, and it will give you twice a week, including this one. It's once a week for that. Also, there's all kinds of MP3s you can put on your phone and listen to, which has been a game changer for me. I still, to this date, do not go to bed without a talk in my headphones. To this day, I still do not. I always listen to something. So you can go there and join that. You can get a private call with me and Terry. You can check out the other resources, Facebook group, all kinds of stuff over at TalkSober.com. And we'll get you where you need to go with your sobriety. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell, give us a big thumbs up. Head over to TalkSober.com, get yourself signed up, help support us, help get the message to other people and whatever other words I'm looking for. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.